And I'm going to turn it over quickly to Sandy God, who is very familiar to us. And as you know, we sponsored the photography program at the Nets, and Sandy has a guest photographer to tell us about that. So I'll just turn it right over to Sandy and you can take it from here.
Thanks, Heather. So as always, it's a pleasure to join a room of such positive people. I can honestly say I leave this place every time encouraged and inspired by all that you and the involvement of the Rotary Club of Cataraqui Kingston do locally and internationally. We've also been blessed to have you bring some of your international guests through the studio, and honestly, the best place to learn about the Mess Studio is right in the Mess Studio. I do have some pictures from the studio if Bill could put those up. And just before I introduce Greg McQueen, who is our group leader for the photography group, I'm just going to give you a bit of an update on the studio. Our tagline is building community with hands and hearts. And over the past year, your club actually over the past 12 years, your club has had its fingerprints all over our diverse and inclusive community. The slideshow, and I'm kind of dating myself by calling it a slideshow, is going to give witness.
Which one do you want?
The one with the big hand logo on it, please, Bill. Yeah. So last summer, we began a new thing, working along.
Okay,
sorry. The big hand.
Yeah.
So anyway, last summer we began a new thing working alongside Addiction and Mental Health Services of the KFLNA, and our mission was to paint a 35-foot mural, a garden mural at the Lion Street Garden. This was an incredible time for us. It was a true stepping out, meeting new people, and bringing life and color to a drab cement block wall. We welcomed some new artists into the studio over the fall and summer as a result of working with people outside over on Lion Street. Will brought music to the studio on Wednesday afternoons. Susan brought her group of artists to come, and they began working on wood burning. Signs were made for the many species of fruit trees that have been planted over on Lion Street in the edible forest. And I'm pretty sure I heard a rumor that this club planted and acquired many of those trees. So again, we're working together outside of our own communities. So in the last number of weeks, we have begun to work on a Find Your Species board that's going to be, it's a live edge board, and the artists are drawing each leaf and then identifying them. So when you come visit the garden, you'll be able to figure out what type of trees they are. The wood burning has been going really well. If you like the smell of wood, it just gives a really nice feel. We're going to be returning to the mural project this summer, and the real fun will begin then, because now we have the background on the mural. We can do fun things like butterflies and other things to just bring it alive. So last fall, both our Pasta Dinner and our annual art show and sale was well attended. Thank you for the Rotarians that came and supported us. It's always nice to look out and see people that you're familiar with and know that they're behind you. So many friends and artists that we hadn't seen for a while have started to return to the studio. Jamal is one of them. He's put down his pen for a short time and he's picked back up his paintbrush. He's such a wonderful teacher. His patience and kindness shine brightly as he helps others learn techniques such as blending, composition, and color mixing. So we also have a dog in the studio, and our dog's name is Oliver. He's an 85-pound golden doodle. He comes every Wednesday and is an amazing member of our community.
There he is.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't look 85 pounds there because he was just shaved down. Anyway, last week a young woman had a seizure in the studio, and Oliver just seemed to know instinctively to go over while she was recovering and sit quietly with her. I tried to call him away, but she insisted that Oliver was just what she needed right then. Our pottery studio has been busy over the last few months. Jeff has been using the skills that he learned back in February of 2020 when we sent 6 artists to Amaranth Stoneware to learn some skills, and Jeff was one of those 6. It was through a grant from the Rotary Club Cataraqui Kingston. We're hoping to send some more this fall because being able to share the skills that you've learned really is empowering for our artists. Each week in the main studio, we're reminded of the importance of community in the lives of all people. Sharing lunch, a coffee, meeting some new friends. There's Will playing the guitar. These experiences are truly priceless. About 8 weeks ago, a young man came in and he was cold. It was still quite cold outside. He just wanted to have something to eat and warm up a bit. And within a few minutes, I thought, oh, did he leave? But I noticed that he had laid down over by the wall rads. We have kind of similar to this. And the most beautiful thing about that was no one in the studio found that to be unusual, or he was just left to sleep there and he felt safe. He came back the next day and he said, I'm having a really bad day. Could you give me some work to do so that I can just, so we hooked him up with Gerard, who is our resident gesso painter, and he paints all of our used canvases white again. And so this young man started doing that. He's been coming in regularly over the last 8 weeks. And last week he said to me, I just need to get through 2 more days and then I'm going to rehab, but I have to be able to stay well. So I'm really hopeful and praying that this week we'll hear the news that he actually was able to go in. Respect and dignity and safety should be available to everyone, regardless of their social status or current situation. Last fall, we welcomed 2 new facilitators, Steph and Margaret. Both have been incredible additions to the studio, and daily we ask ourselves, how do we get along without them? The necessity to have 2 more facilitators grew out of another amazing partnership with Support Not Stigma and Lionhearts Inc. We were approached by Lionhearts after a needs assessment study was conducted and completed in 2021. The importance of providing meaningful activities, both creative and therapeutic, was one of the identified recommendations. A safe place where people may become more self-confident and empowered. So talks between Support Not Stigma and Lionhearts led them to us, and we're now facilitating another community called Create at Concession, and it happens 2 times a week at the Concession Street Warming Center. As this community grows, we're so encouraged to be making connections with people that are given transportation from the Integrated Care Hub on Montreal Street to Concession Street. Now, if you've gone by there recently, you've seen that a lot of the encampment is gone because people have moved on. So what Steph and I have been doing now is weekly we'll either visit the Adelaide Shelter or Concession Street. We go over to the hub and we just pass out little invites and invite people into community. Create at Concession is funded until the end of 2023. So in just a moment, I am going to introduce Greg McQueen to you, and let him speak of the group. After Greg is shared, there is a very short video on here that shows photos from the photography group. It shows some of the photographs that the photographers from the group have taken, flowers, just beautiful things. And so we're going to end with that and our heartfelt thank you for your support. So Greg came onto our radar about 5 years ago, and he's an avid photographer that believes that photography and the arts in general can help people to connect, to express themselves, and is an important part of mental health and wellness. Many of our regulars at the time had an interest in photography, so it didn't take us long to determine that Greg was just what we needed. He was approached to begin offering the group discussions, and the rest is history. His 21 years of working in community mental health and the true passion he has for photography serve him very well in his role as the photography group leader. Over to you, Greg.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Yeah, so photography's been a part of my life for, well, most of my life. Remember my first film camera Christmas gift when I was, maybe 10, 12 years old. And so I fell in love with photography right from that point on. And then when the digital age came along, of course, it took a while. I was a late adopter, but finally got into digital photography. And I know how much photography means to me, how it's my way of disconnecting from the stresses of the day, of connecting to people and in my community, of expressing myself. And when I saw Sandy's green signs outside the mess, I'd never actually heard about the mess before, and I was just out for a walk and saw the signs and checked it out. And much like those people that use the mess, I was welcomed. I felt at home almost instantly. And that's what the mess does, is it just helps people to feel that connection, to feel that engagement right away. You come as you are, and you experience it as you need to. And the same goes with photography. So yes, I have this fancy digital mirrorless camera with, I've got a slew of lenses and accessories for it. But for those who want to join the photography group, they don't need anything like this. If all they have is the camera in their phone or no camera at all, they're welcome. I have cameras that I can lend to them. We don't necessarily do classes, though I do help people to understand their cameras or to talk about composition and different creative ideas. But mostly it's just a chance for people who love photography to get together, to share their work, and some of the work is just amazing. Some of the photographs that our people have taken, and many of them long before I started there. They're people bringing in old prints that they had from many years ago, and they share that. We usually start each week with a little show and tell session of showing the pictures that people have taken, or they'll come in and maybe show off the new camera that they just got or something like that. Now, digital photography has made it a little bit easier for some people, for all of us really, to get into photography. One of the challenges, though, is how do we get it from here, from the phone or the camera, onto paper? And we can take it to Camera Kingston. There's fewer and fewer places around that allow us to do that. Camera Kingston is one. But we wanted to make that accessible, just as the mess makes art of all sorts accessible to people. So with the kind gift from the Rotary Club, we were able to purchase a computer, a monitor, a nice size monitor, and a really nice printer. Now the printer, those of you who have printers at home, like myself, you probably know you buy the printer and then you realize to replace the ink that ran out of the ink costs more than the printer itself, right? We all know that. Well, we bought what's called an EcoTank printer. So in this case, you don't need to replace cartridges. You just fill tanks of ink. So over the long run, it's a little more expensive up front, but over the long run, it will save the mess money on refilling, so that people can access that, make their prints, and we don't have to worry that it's going to run out of ink right away. So that was really good. So with that computer is Photoshop Elements software as well. So people are learning how to edit their photos, how to print their photos. They can print right from their phone if they want. They don't have to go onto the computer, but they have access to that. So we do we've done a couple of little lessons on how to use the software. I'm by no means an expert. I appreciate your introduction as photographer. I'm actually a mental health worker, but photography is my passion. But I see the link between them for sure. But in terms of computers, I'm definitely not an expert there. But I do my best to help people to understand how to use Photoshop, the basic sort of functions, and but if there's ever any hiccups, I'm not the guy, I'm not the IT guy. But yeah, so in the group, we've had, I think it's 5 years, maybe 6, I'm not exactly sure.
Probably 6.
About that, so I started just, just Sandy and I talking about how we could organize a group. And then, as she said, there's, in the last couple of years, more of a connection with my agency. So where I was doing this on my own time, now my agency actually sponsors me to be there. So I don't need to take time off to actually run the group. And they're very kind in that respect. And have really a bit of a shift over the last couple of years to understand more and more how things like art, photography, music, how these help to engage people and get them involved. So I appreciate the Rotary Club for your kind donation, and thank you.
That's awesome. We are working towards a date for a show of the photography. I think right now focusing on learning the program and how to do that and not putting undue pressure. But this is just a little recap. That was at our fall show. So thank you.
I was really pleased to be assigned the speaker thanks today because both of these organizations are very special to me as well as to the club. Bread has been one of the staples in life throughout history and is seen in its many forms in all cultures. The breaking and sharing of bread is symbolic of life, peace, and building of friendships. This loaf of bread is given to you both as a symbol of our friendships and thanks for sharing with us today.